The lights inside the arena burned hot and white, cutting through drifting smoke and rising noise as the crowd swelled with anticipation. A low rumble rolled through the seats, half expectation, half tension. Mexico and the United States represented on opposite sides of the ring. Flags waved. Voices clashed. This was more than just another fight night. This was pride, momentum, and survival colliding under one roof. Chris "Primetime" Colbert stepped out first, silver and black trunks shimmering under the lights. Once a rising star, a beautifully slick counterpuncher, he walked with a quiet swagger that hinted at unfinished business. Across the ring, Omar "Super" Salcido emerged in red and black, eyes cold, chest heaving with purpose. A pressure fighter by nature, Salcido carried the hunger of a man who knew this moment could change everything. 4 years separated them in age, only an inch in height, but experience, confidence, and styles would create a far wider distance, or erase it entirely. Colbert, the rhythm fighter, relied on movement, timing, and precision. When his groove was intact, he was poetry in motion. When it wasn't, pressure had broken him before. Salcido, shaped by tough gyms and relentless rounds, had come to walk through fire. He wasn't here to admire technique. He was here to drag Colbert into deep waters. The referee called them to center ring. Final instructions echoed. Gloves touched. No words exchanged. Just locked eyes and rising breath. The bell loomed like a starting gun, and with the first clang of metal, 2 careers stepped into the unknown. Round 1 opened cautiously, both men testing the storm before fully stepping into it. Colbert circled lightly, toes dancing, shoulders loose, hands flashing in quick feints. His jab whispered through the air, more a threat than a weapon. Salcido advanced methodically, cutting the ring into smaller and smaller squares, forcing Colbert back a step at a time. The crowd buzzed as styles immediately collided, slickness versus pressure, angles versus brute will. Salcido's gloves thumped against Colbert's guard as he probed the body, looking for early dents in the armor. Colbert answered with sharp counters, quick 2- and 3-shot flurries that snapped Salcido's head, just enough to remind him this would not be an easy march forward. In the second round, the tempo climbed. Colbert found brief pockets of rhythm, sliding just outside Salcido's reach and firing clean left hooks that drew flashes of applause. But every escape carried a cost. Salcido absorbed the shots and walked forward again, unshaken, pounding the ribs and digging under the elbows. The sound of shots changed, lighter taps giving way to heavier thuds. By the third round, the crowd sensed the shift forming beneath the surface. Colbert's footwork stayed fluid, but the pressure was building. When he touched the ropes, even for a second, Salcido unleashed looping hooks and grinding body shots, trying to anchor the American in place. Colbert answered bravely, standing his ground longer than usual, trading just enough to keep Salcido honest. Still, the feeling-out phase was ending. The chess match was giving way to trench warfare, and neither man blinked as the early rounds slipped into something far more dangerous. By the middle rounds, Salcido's mission became unmistakably clear. Break the body, slow the dancer, steal the rhythm away piece by piece. He stalked behind a heavier jab now, stepping into it with bad intentions. Each time Colbert tried to pivot away, Salcido closed the exit. Left hooks to the ribs landed with dull, hollow thuds that echoed through the building. You could hear Colbert's breath change, not yet desperate, but no longer effortless. Colbert, for his part, stayed brave. He slipped, rolled, and countered with clean right hands down the middle, scoring with precision even as the storm pressed closer. But the ring felt smaller with every passing minute. Salcido's pressure was no longer just physical, it was psychological. He forced exchanges, stole rest, and made Colbert work every second of every round. The crowd roared as the fighters traded heavy hooks in tight quarters, sweat spraying into the lights like mist. One exchange saw both men land left hooks simultaneously, a brutal reminder that neither was fading quietly. As rounds 5 and 6 unfolded, the bodywork began to tell its story. Colbert's movement slowed just enough for Salcido to notice. His counters, once sharp and sudden, now came a fraction of a second later. That fraction was all Salcido needed. He marched forward behind combinations, drilling the midsection, then snapping shots upstairs. Colbert fought with courage, firing back in flurries, but the tide was no longer neutral. The momentum was shifting toward the man in red and black, and the crowd could feel it, rising, restless, leaning forward in their seats as the pressure fighter's will started to bend the shape of the fight. Entering the later rounds, the battle had become a test of punishment and persistence. Colbert's slickness still surfaced in flashes. A quick slip here, a sharp counter there. But the space he once commanded was gone. Salcido owned the geography now. Every step Colbert took was met with resistance. The ropes waited like a trap, and too often, Colbert found his back brushing against them. Salcido unloaded with ruthless consistency. Hooks to both sides of the body, straight rights upstairs, combinations thrown not just to score, but to drain. The crowd grew louder with every forward surge, sensing the finish hanging in the air. Colbert dug deep, trading in moments that would have broken lesser fighters. He fired back with short right hands and brave left hooks, refusing to fold even as the pressure mounted. But fatigue does not announce itself loudly. It creeps in silently. His guard rose slower. His exits came later. Salcido sensed it instantly. He tightened his punches, shortened his hooks, and stayed planted in the pocket. The ringing of gloves on flesh became relentless. By round 8, the scoreboard no longer mattered. This was about survival. Salcido's body attacks had accumulated, each one stacking on the last, like bricks on a collapsing wall. Colbert still fought with heart, but his movement betrayed him. The rhythm that once defined primetime had been stolen by constant punishment and relentless pursuit. The crowd stood now, voices colliding into a roar that pushed both men forward. Then, as the 9th round approached, the corner's warning was clear. Something had to change, or the fight would be taken from Colbert altogether. Round 9 opened with urgency burning in the air. Salcido surged forward as if called by instinct, snapping the jab and crashing hooks into Colbert's guard. Colbert tried to meet him head-on, but the legs that once carried him freely now felt anchored in concrete. Salcido dug deep to the body again, thump after thump, each shot stealing breath, stealing resistance. A heavy right hand split the guard. A left hook followed. The crowd erupted as Colbert backed up under the storm, shoulders heaving, eyes still defiant but fading. Salcido did not rush recklessly. He stalked with discipline, cutting off escape, forcing one final reckoning along the ropes. Colbert fired back with everything he had left, short, sharp punches born of pride and survival. But the pressure never stopped. It never slowed. From the corner, desperation flooded the air. Then, in a moment heavy with heartbreak and mercy, the towel flew, white against colored lights, a surrender not of spirit, but of a body that had paid enough. The referee waved it off at 1 minute and 2 seconds of round 9. The bell never needed to ring. Omar Super Salcido stood victorious by technical knockout. The arena exploded in sound. Cheers, gasps, and applause mixed in a roaring river of emotion. Salcido raised his gloves, chest heaving, eyes shining with triumph earned through fire and will. Across the ring, Chris Colbert stood wounded but dignified, a warrior who had refused to break even as defeat closed in. On this night, pressure conquered slickness, persistence conquered precision, and in the unforgiving theater of boxing, Omar Salcido walked away the victor, his victory carved not by a single punch, but by an endless storm of will.